As modern-day gamers, we often take for granted many features in contemporary video games. Things like quest journals, auto-saving, and fast travel are relatively new developments when you think about the grand scope of the medium in general, and yet with each new AAA title that's released, we unconsciously look for these aspects to see if our games have met a basic standard. One of these underappreciated yet integral features is the objective marker seen in minimaps, something that every single player has used at some point in their downtime. Have you ever felt the need to set apart one mission from the next in a Bethesda game? What about using the sense ability in The Witcher 3? Or perhaps you just got lost while driving on a race course in Forza and needed help getting back on track. With all three of these examples and many more, you have more than likely utilized the minimap marker, whether you liked it or not. While usually manifesting itself as an arrow, many games of late have gotten quite creative with the design of it, such as the bat symbol in the Arkham series. No matter what though, its function remains the same. And yet, what is the history of this tiny little component? Has it done more good than bad when it comes to defining how we play video games? Let's take a look. Long before Sony and Microsoft entered the market, computers and the NES were the main consoles for anyone interested in gaming. This was due to the fact that each one had a great library of titles worth exploring, from big box PC games like Pool of Radiance and King's Quest to of course your assortments of Nintendo classics. Old school exploration titles, in particular, served as the basis for a lot of great memories, and part of the fun came from the fact that players had no idea where to go, and they were given no directional cues where to go. AKA, there was no map compass or little arrow pointing the way. If you were given a side quest in, let's say, Ultima 6, you had very little help finding out where to go. If you needed help to retrieve a weapon in the original Legend of Zelda, memorizing the layout of the landscape became critical to moving around. This is no doubt derived from the influence of iconic tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons, that required active player involvement in mapping out the board. As such, don't find it strange if you find someone online boosting a hand-drawn world map of a game's area. This is what players had to do if they couldn't shell out the money for a game guide. We were on our own as navigators, and that was part of the skill involved in becoming a good player back then. However, as graphics became more detailed and game mechanics more sophisticated, this older method of challenging players by way of no hand-holding grew more frustrating than fun. It needed an evolution, and it finally got several in the mid-90s to early 2000s. Experimentation with the formula provided several different ways for players to go about the game world without relying on a purely linear mechanic. For example, the sci-fi horror cult favorite System Shock gave a minimap that permanently filled in whenever the main character would explore a new area. The famous ARPG Deus Ex, on the other hand, provided a thin yet functioning compass to assist in player direction. And finally, The Elder Scrolls Morrowind gave gamers the opportunity to have an objective visibly marked on their map, provided they actually questioned NPCs for details on the matter. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, for players, this was also the moments where developers decided to go all out with the initial prototypes for the next big evolution of game-to-player assistance, the quest marker. While this primarily occupied racing games like Crazy Taxi, it also hit one of the most popular action games of all time, Grand Theft Auto 3. Every time you boot up a new Rockstar game and see the various quests outlined by those giant letters, you can thank GTA 3 for pioneering this feature. Without a quest journal, it was an inventive way of showing players the different tasks they had to complete in the massive urban environments they were in. After all, the game just may have been too big for players to really figure it out on their own. But for fans of the non-linear format though, this was the beginning of the end. Don't forget that Morrowind and Grand Theft Auto 3 were released around the same time onto consoles, but because the latter was more successful, it led to the optimization and popularization of its mechanics. Morrowind's sequel, Oblivion, officially brought the quest marker into the Elder Scrolls series, and subsequently the Fallout franchise as well. While some indie games like Echelon stick to the older ways, most AAA titles have switched to this new format. And the question is, for all of us, is this good or bad for how we interact with our games? There have been many complaints that AAA video games today are just too easy. Most developers are opting to develop systems that encourage hand-holding as opposed to the older ways where players would simply be provided a few clues and let loose on the landscape. The Quest Compass personifies this shift. Take two of the most successful action role-playing games released this year, Horizon Zero Dawn and Mass Effect Andromeda. Both games have very intrusive markers that either cannot be removed unless the quest is deselected, or doesn't come into effect unless you are already within a relatively close distance.
Well, someone left here recently, and they were in a hurry.
Mining zones in this region are available, Pathfinder. I've added them to your nav system.
This is an example of implementing a feature without putting thought into whether or not it will be all-encompassing to the various demographics of gamers. While exceptions like Breath of the Wild and Dark Souls 3 do exist, no longer can we, as gamers, fully expect upcoming free roam titles to be as wide and open as they market themselves. It would be one thing if the quest marker could be an optional feature, activated or deactivated from a settings menu, but when you have so many game developers actively choosing not to include those options, it can subsequently hurt the game. Thankfully, some games like The Witcher 3 allow most of these HUD options to be disabled, which is I think the appropriate way to go. However, it doesn't address the big issue, that games are undeniably developed with these systems as their bones. And when you really break it down, objectives then become glorified takes on the follow the leader trope, only instead of an NPC, you're trailing an arrow. It sometimes encourages us to focus on that small feature instead of the actual game world, and it can mean a lot of effort put into the finer details of the art design or graphics go to waste. To give an example, when Batman Arkham Asylum came out, it was discovered that a lot of gamers had chosen to leave detective vision on for the entirety of their playthrough. This caused a few different things, one being that surprise assaults from enemy henchmen were basically irrelevant, and also, but more importantly, it meant that the glorious Gothic architecture that was put into the game was constantly covered in a blue light. The same thing applies, albeit to a lesser extent, to the Quest Compass. Whether on the main screen or a minimap, players can be prevented from enjoying the wonderful features of a game world by the constant presence of this little thing on their monitor. But one of the most overlooked viewpoints on the use of hand-holding in the quest marker is that it creates dependencies and expectations. It might be harder for us now, harder than ever, to accept games as puzzles or as raw challenge, with the notion that we need to figure out everything on our own, where to go, who to talk to, how to make that potion, or simply which direction to set off. And because of this, some may argue that we've been kind of trained through the years to expect quest markers, detailed logs of everything we need to do, bullet points, highlights, and all of that stuff, and to rely on them too. Has the development of linearity and handholding in our games conditioned us to be less curious, less patient or forgiving, zombies, willing to let ourselves enter that autopilot mode while the game does all the hard work for us? On one hand, the development of the quest marker system could simply be viewed as a coevolution alongside the growth of video game worlds. Even though we have had open world games since Hydlide in 1984, their sophistication and size have grown dramatically in the decades since. We're no longer dealing with flat, 8-bit fields of pixelated grass. Video games today are massive and detailed. Having to navigate amongst tens of islands in Assassin's Creed Black Flag or wander around Velen or White Orchard in The Witcher 3 can be tedious without some method of marking a passage through them. So in this regard, having a quest marker can alleviate some stress in playing complex games. There is also the fact that it prevents players from wasting time on pointless filler. It's helpful to know in the Witcher games which geographical area contains side quests or Witcher contracts or monster nests, to enable players to filter through the various content of the game. Without a journal, map markers, or a quest arrow, it would be awfully hard to consume the content that you want because you're just not sure where to go. And lastly, the quest marker is a very good tool at manipulating the narrative. While I thought the game itself was a complete disaster, Final Fantasy XIII's streamlined Follow Me quest arrow did a good job shepherding you from area to area, which allowed the story to remain urgent and move from chapter to chapter at a brisk pace.
Cute girl like me. It's hard to close your eyes, huh?
But of course, at the same time, it simply meant that players could shut off their brain and have the game basically play itself. As gamers, I think we all have different opinions on what would make a good video game versus what would make a bad video game. And the truth is, no one is entirely right or wrong. The real question is, how do we want the quest marker and hand-holding in general implemented into our favorite games? Let me know what you guys think down below and we can continue the conversation. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button, it really helps. And subscribe here for more of our future content. And you guys have an awesome day. We'll see you guys in our next video.